That's what guided.
I just want you, man. I blame a lot of it on the industry, man, and what the gatekeepers and some of these record execs who they don't want to spend. It costs money.
What happened to D'Angelo, the once famous R&B star? How did a singer loved by millions suddenly disappear from the spotlight? D'Angelo had everything: talent, fame, and fans who adored him. But behind the scenes, his life wasn't as perfect as it seemed. What led to his struggles with fame, personal challenges, and heartbreak? Let's dive into the story of what really happened to this music legend.
You don't have to just talk with your mouth. You know, there's a lot of different types of communication. You know, music is just another form of communication.
D'Angelo, whose real name is Michael Eugene Archer, was born in South Richmond, Virginia. He grew up in a deeply religious Pentecostal family, as his father was a Pentecostal preacher.
It's not seen as a musical hotbed. However,
Yeah.
come on, come explain it. Tell me about
It's not, because I don't know how many. There are not really a lot of cats there from there that made it really big.
From a young age, it was clear that D'Angelo had a special gift for music. At just 3 years old, he was spotted by his older brother playing the piano at home. As he grew older, D'Angelo formed a musical group in Richmond, Virginia. The group became well known in their hometown, performing soul covers and original songs. D'Angelo was also busy writing his own music and improving his skills as a songwriter.
When I was coming up, when I was little, my whole thing was I wanted to just be big enough to be in a band, because they used to have Battle of the Bands all the time down there, and it was a big deal, you know.
In 1991, D'Angelo's life took an exciting turn. He and a fellow musician named Precise decided to perform at the famous Apollo Theater in Harlem, New York. This was part of the theater's amateur night competition. The 18-year-old D'Angelo and his group amazed the crowd, winning 3 times in a row and earning a cash prize. This success gave D'Angelo the confidence to follow his dream. He left school and moved to New York City to focus on his music career. Back in Richmond, he was inspired to create an album and began writing and producing songs.
which is a lot of people don't know that you were in a hip-hop band, hip-hop group. And the group is pictured here. And it's called...
Before starting his solo journey, D'Angelo was briefly part of a hip-hop group called IDU, which stood for Intelligent, Deadly, but Unique. D'Angelo, the famous R&B singer, started his music career at just 17 years old.
Called IDU, Intelligent, Deadly, but Unique.
That's right.
His journey wasn't easy, but it's an inspiring story. Let's talk about how he got his big break and what led to his early success. When D'Angelo was 17, he met Jocelyn Cooper. She was an important person in the music world and had a company called Midnight Songs LLC. After hearing a demo from D'Angelo's hip-hop group, IDU, which stood for Intelligent, Deadly, but Unique, she believed in his talent. D'Angelo not only rapped in the group, but also produced their songs. Jocelyn liked what she heard and signed him to her company. Jocelyn didn't stop there. She introduced D'Angelo to other talented people in the music industry, like Raphael Sadiq, Ali Shaheed Muhammad, and Angie Stone. Together, they worked on writing songs. Then Jocelyn introduced him to important executives at EMI Music, where D'Angelo auditioned. His audition was so impressive that he was signed to a recording contract in 1993. Jocelyn also brought in Kedar Massenberg, an attorney who later became D'Angelo's manager. Kedar played a big role in shaping D'Angelo's career. In 1994, D'Angelo achieved his first major success with the song You Will Know. This song was for an R&B supergroup called Black Men United. It included big names like Usher, Brian McKnight, R. Kelly, Boyz II Men, and Gerald Levert. D'Angelo co-wrote and co-produced the song, while his brother Luther Archer wrote the lyrics. You Will Know was part of the movie Jason's Lyric and became very popular. It reached number 5 on the Hot R&B Hip Hop Singles chart and number 28 on the Billboard Hot 100. The music video showed D'Angelo as a choir director, and he even performed the song live at the Soul Train Music Awards. The success of You Will Know put D'Angelo on the map. He became a rising star in the music industry. That same year, he wrote and produced a song called Overjoyed for the Boys Choir of Harlem. The song was featured on their album, The Sound of Hope. With each project, D'Angelo proved that he was not only a great singer, but also a talented songwriter and producer. The buzz around him kept growing, and many people in the music industry started noticing his talent. In 1995, D'Angelo dropped his first album, Brown Sugar, and it felt like the stars aligned. He wasn't just a singer, he did it all. He played instruments, made beats, and wrote songs. He was the full package. When Brown Sugar came out, it was game over for everyone else. The album had hits like Lady and Heaven Must Be Like This. It was smooth, fresh, and soulful. People knew something special had arrived. Neo-soul music was officially here, and D'Angelo was its king. D'Angelo was young, talented, and good-looking, with a voice smoother than silk. Fans and critics loved him, but later D'Angelo spoke out about the neo-soul label. He wasn't a fan of it. "I never embraced that," he said. "I just called my music soul. Either you have soul or you don't. It's not about putting it in a box." He felt labels like neo-soul separated artists instead of bringing them together. In 2000, D'Angelo gave us another masterpiece with his Voodoo album. Songs like Untitled, How Does It Feel?
I just want you, man.
Player Player, and Africa showed his genius again.
Dwell within the land that's meant for me.
This album was a mix of raw emotion, smooth vibes, and amazing talent. It became a classic, and D'Angelo's legacy as one of the best in soul music was set in stone. But when his album Voodoo came out, it took him to a whole new level. The music was incredible, no doubt about that. But let's be honest, most people couldn't stop talking about the video for Untitled, How Does It Feel?
I just want you, man.
D'Angelo was in the best shape of his life, shirtless and oiled up. Fans went wild, but before all the fame that came with Voodoo, D'Angelo was in a tough place. He admitted he wasn't feeling inspired to create. Why? He said he wasn't ready for what came with being in the music industry. "You don't really know what it's about until you're in it," he explained. "Once I saw how things worked, it jaded me." He felt lost and had to remind himself why he started making music in the first place. It was all about his love for the art, and he needed to get back to that feeling. When it came time to shoot the video for Untitled, the concept of being naked was there from the start. D'Angelo didn't mind because for him, it was about connecting with the audience. He wanted people to feel the music deeply. The director told him to dig into his emotions, like he was singing from his soul in a church choir. And it worked. That performance was raw, real, and unforgettable. But the reaction to the video brought its own set of problems. Suddenly, people were more focused on how D'Angelo looked than on what he was saying through his music. He didn't like being seen as a sex symbol. That wasn't why he made music. He just wanted people to vibe with his sound, not obsess over his body. Imagine making beautiful, soulful music that touches hearts, but people only notice your abs. That's what D'Angelo faced. He opened up about performing with his band and hearing women in the crowd screaming, "Take it off!" It felt less about the music and more like he was a male stripper. The pressure to keep his body in perfect shape was overwhelming. He started feeling like his music wasn't even the main focus anymore. The pressure got into his head. What's a man to do, he wondered, when it feels like nobody cares about your music anymore? It wasn't just about keeping up the looks people wanted, it was about staying true to himself. The weight of it all started eating away at him. D'Angelo just wanted people to feel the music first, but it seemed like his image was stealing the spotlight. For an artist so passionate about his craft, that kind of pressure can be tough to handle.
Those kinds of performers come along once every other generation.
D'Angelo went through a tough time after its success. After taking a break in Virginia, his life started to spiral out of control. He wanted to get away from the sexy image he had from his famous, untitled "How Does It Feel" video. Instead of focusing on music, he began partying, drinking, and using cocaine. Things got even worse when he lost his grandmother and uncle. Then in 2001, his close friend Fred Jordan tragically took his own life. This deeply hurt D'Angelo and made his struggles even harder to handle. His friend and engineer, Russ Elevato, said D'Angelo started drinking heavily, which led to even more problems. Russ and even famous musicians like Eric Clapton tried to help him, but D'Angelo wouldn't listen. As time passed, opportunities for projects like the Soultronics album disappeared. D'Angelo started working on a new solo album, but this time, he wanted it to be completely his own.
I quickly realized that this was not Brown Sugar Part 2. It was very much a different kind of record, and that this was an artist who really had something substantial about what he was trying to do music.
He didn't want help from big names like Raphael Saadiq or other producers. He wanted to be like Prince, creating music all by himself. But progress on the album was slow. If D'Angelo didn't feel inspired, he would just sit in the studio or play video games. The record label was paying for the studio time, but D'Angelo kept promising he was working hard, even when he wasn't. He wanted the album to be perfect, but nothing was coming together. In 2002, his troubles with the law began. He was arrested for disorderly conduct and assault after cutting off a woman in his car, spitting on her, and fleeing the scene. When police arrived, they reportedly had to use pepper spray to arrest him. People close to him worried about his future. Some even prayed they wouldn't get a phone call saying he was in serious trouble, or worse. By 2004, the record label had enough. They stopped funding his album because he hadn't produced any music in nearly 3 years. In the fast-paced music industry, 3 years felt like a lifetime. At the start of 2005, D'Angelo's troubles got even worse. He was arrested again, this time for driving under the influence, possessing drugs, and disturbing the peace. Then Clive Davis's J Records decided to take a chance on R&B star D'Angelo. They hoped to bring his career back to life after it had hit a rough patch. But just a few months later, things got worse. In Virginia, D'Angelo was in a car accident. He was in his Hummer when it went off the road, hit a fence, and he was thrown from the vehicle. He spent several days in the hospital. Reports said he was under the influence at the time. A woman was also in the car, and she got hurt too. She was said to be driving because D'Angelo's license had been taken away after a DUI arrest months earlier. This crash was another low point in his life. Around the same time, he had been in court and got a 3-year suspended sentence for a drug charge. According to Angie Stone, who had dated D'Angelo, rumors started spreading in the music industry. Letters accused her of introducing him to drugs and alcohol, blaming her for his struggles. Angie believed D'Angelo didn't know about the letters, but she felt his team might have been behind them. By 2005, D'Angelo was at rock bottom. He wasn't talking to his family, he struggled with addiction, and he didn't look like the star people once knew. To make things worse, his house was going to be auctioned off in May 2006. I mean, many people thought he would turn his life around after a car accident, but that wasn't the case. It wasn't until 2006 when his close friend, Jay Dilla, passed away at just 32 years old, that D'Angelo realized he needed help. He decided to go to a rehab center called Eric Clapton's Crossroads in Antigua. The problem? It cost $40,000, and he didn't have the money. That's when Gary Harris, an executive at EMI Music and a good friend of D'Angelo, stepped in. Gary reached out to Irving Azoff, a big name in the music world. Even though Irving didn't know D'Angelo personally, he knew about his music and agreed to help. Irving wrote a check to cover the rehab costs. D'Angelo stayed at the rehab center for a month. In 2007, he signed a deal with J Records, hoping to get back on track. But life kept throwing challenges his way. In 2010, he got into trouble with the law. He was arrested in New York after offering $40 to an undercover police officer for inappropriate services. Despite these setbacks, not everything was bad. During his time away from the spotlight, D'Angelo became a father again. He also spent hours mastering the guitar, practicing 6 hours a day. At one point, his weight went up to 300 pounds, but he was determined to make a change. He started eating fish and green apples and worked out to lose weight. Back in 2007, a song of his was leaked by Questlove, a fellow artist and drummer from the Roots. This caused some tension between them. Despite this, D'Angelo kept going. In 2008, he released a compilation album called The Best So Far, which included a DVD with never-before-seen footage. That year, D'Angelo welcomed another child and started to come out of his shell. He announced a European tour that included 11 shows in cities like London and Stockholm. This was a warm-up for his big comeback. In 2012, he performed in the US for the first time in years at the Bonnaroo Music Festival, sharing the stage with Questlove. The two had mended their relationship, showing that time heals wounds. D'Angelo signed with RCA Records after his previous label shut down. In December 2014, he surprised everyone with the release of his third album, Black Messiah. He planned to release it later, but the tragic deaths of Mike Brown and Eric Garner moved him to release it early. These events made him want to use his music to speak out against injustice. The first hint of Black Messiah came on December 12, 2014, when Kevin Lyles, D'Angelo's manager, posted a 15-second teaser on YouTube. 2 days later, the song Sugar Daddy, which D'Angelo had been playing in his concerts since 2012, was released. Fans could download it from Red Bull's 20 Before 15 website. After a special listening event in New York, Black Messiah was made available digitally on December 15th through platforms like iTunes, Google Play Music, and Spotify. The surprise release was similar to how Beyoncé had dropped her self-titled album in 2013. The album received rave reviews from music critics, scoring a 95 out of 100 on Metacritic. Fans loved it too. In its first week, Black Messiah debuted at number 5 on the Billboard 200 chart, selling 117,000 copies in the US. However, in the second week, the album dropped to number 25, with 40,000 more copies sold. In the UK, it started at number 47, with 7,423 copies sold. To support the album, D'Angelo went on tour with his band, The Vanguard. The band had a talented group of musicians, including Chris Dave on drums, Pino Palladino on bass, and Jesse Johnson from The Time, and Isaiah Sharkey on guitar. D'Angelo himself played the electric grand piano, electric guitar, and sometimes led the band. The tour, called The Second Coming, started in New York in February 2015 and ended in Austin in November 2015. It included 57 shows across Europe, Asia, and North America. At the 58th Annual Grammy Awards in 2016, Black Messiah won Best R&B Album, and its song Really Love won Best R&B Song. The album was also nominated for Record of the Year: D'Angelo's Black Messiah, Beyoncé's Beyoncé, Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly, and Run the Jewels, Run the Jewels. Two were all seen as paving the way for more albums with powerful political messages that would come out in 2016.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much.
This includes albums like Rihanna's Anti and Kanye West's The Life of Pablo. In June 2015, D'Angelo told Rolling Stone that he was already working on new music, describing it as a companion piece to Black Messiah. A year later, in April 2016, D'Angelo performed Sometimes It Snows in April by Prince on The Tonight Show as a tribute to the late music icon. D'Angelo was clearly emotional, showing how much Prince had influenced him. In 2018, D'Angelo contributed to the soundtrack of the popular video game Red Dead Redemption 2. He sang the song Unshaken, which was produced by Daniel Lanois. D'Angelo even played the game before he was asked to join the soundtrack team, and the song was finished in just 1 week. Unshaken was released as a digital single in January 2019.
And I remember just what guided.
D'Angelo's Black Messiah was more than just an album. It was a statement. It was an album that reflected the struggles of the time and showed D'Angelo's power as an artist. The music world will always remember it as a bold and inspiring release. D'Angelo, in recent years, he has taken on some exciting new projects that have fans buzzing. In 2021, D'Angelo announced he would be performing at the famous Apollo Theater in New York City. This event, called D'Angelo vs. Friends, was not a typical competition. Instead, D'Angelo performed a solo set with some of his friends and fellow artists like Keon Harold, Method Man and Redman, and HER fans got a chance to hear D'Angelo's music in a special way, where he shared the stage with some of his favorite collaborators. Later that year, in June 2021, D'Angelo performed at the Tribeca Film Festival in New York City. This performance was different because it was a celebration of music from the video game Red Dead Redemption 2. D'Angelo sang Unshaken, a song he created for the game's soundtrack. During this performance, he played guitar and sang while working with other talented musicians like Daniel Lanois, Rhiannon Giddens, and his own band, D'Angelo and the Vanguard. In 2024, D'Angelo teamed up with Jay-Z on a new song called I Want You Forever. This song was part of the soundtrack for a movie called The Book of Clarence. Around the same time, D'Angelo's friend Raphael Sadiq mentioned that D'Angelo was in a great place and working on new music. Fans are excited to hear what's coming next. D'Angelo has often talked about the many influences that shaped his sound. One of his biggest influences was the legendary musician Prince. D'Angelo admired how Prince wrote, produced, and performed his own music. He wanted to follow in those footsteps and be fully involved in creating his albums. D'Angelo's music also reflects his love for different genres. He has said that the hip-hop sounds in his music came from groups like A Tribe Called Quest and Gang Starr. He also talks about his love for gospel, blues, soul music, and artists like James Brown, Sly and the Family Stone, and Jimi Hendrix. His musical journey has always been about exploring and growing, both as an artist and as a person. During the time when D'Angelo was creating his second album, he spent many hours recording music. He not only wrote original songs, but he also covered songs by his influences, whom he calls his Yoda. These artists include soul legend Al Green, funk icon George Clinton, and Afrobeat pioneer Fela Kuti. D'Angelo credits these musicians for shaping his sound and pushing him to be a better artist. In 2023, Rolling Stone magazine recognized D'Angelo as one of the greatest singers of all time, ranking him number 75 on their list of the 200 greatest singers. This is just another example of how D'Angelo's talent has earned him respect in the music world. As D'Angelo continues to grow in his career, fans are eager to see what's next for this amazing artist. Whether he's performing with friends or creating new music, D'Angelo's journey through the world of music is far from over.